Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to class number 5. I'm not sure. But we are going to be going into the common mistakes as a beginner knitter. So we're going to kind of look into things that, maybe you're starting to make a air warmer or a scarf, and these little things might just make your project turn out a little bit better. So that's what I'm going to jump into today. If you guys have anything that you're having a issue with, I'm going to give you guys a chance to kind of maybe explain it towards the end, just so that I make sure that I cover it in this video. But for anybody that's new here, my name is Ti, and I'm your knitting instructor. And this video or class is sponsored through Better Spaces that allow me to give you guys this free course. So let me admit some more people. I am going to do a little bit of housekeeping because sometimes I do it towards the end, and then the links that I post, you're not able to kind of grab it before we end the class. So I'm going to just go ahead and add that in the chat for you guys. The first link, and if you see me look over here, is just for my computer. The first link that I want to give you guys, as usual, is the Yarn Council website. This is really helpful for measurements, you know, for the sizes of needle pertaining to whatever specific yarn you're using. And then I'm also going to add the playlist, and the playlist is what I've created for this class. This is to add all the videos that I do get after completing the class with you guys. The videos have been coming about a day before, a couple days before the following class. So, it doesn't give as much time if you want to practice during the week. So what I'm going to do is probably put a video that I make myself independently within that, just to kind of fill the gap for that. And I think that's it. Oh, I'm also going to add my email. So if you don't have a question during the class, or if your question arises after class, you can go ahead and email me. Yeah, let's jump right in. Make sure this is in focus for you guys. Okay, so common mistakes that, I did some of these, and I still do some of these to these, oh, shaking, to this day, is first the twisted stitch. And this happens, pretty frequently for me sometimes, all depending on how fast I'm trying to knit. So I'm going to cast on about 10 stitches. And I thought about just doing this prior to this class, but I think casting on and just doing the basic stuff allows you to see things again. Let me a little bit more focus. Okay. Allows you to see things again. So it's almost like a refresher. Okay. So let me just do the purl stitches in the back. If you guys remember, the purls have these bumps, and I'm going to purl along the back. And you're purling by inserting the needle from the front. Make sure your working yarn is in front. Insert the needle from the front, yarn over, and continue along. I'm detangling the working yarn. That's why you see that little shake at the end. Let's get through this. Okay, so we are at the end here, and the end can be a little annoying because it's not as, I guess, tight as the other stitches. So you kind of want to do a tug. And then if you notice, the end here is the cast on that we first start with. So we have to kind of make sure that that first cast on is done pretty tightly against the needle. But once you push it on, you can see it's a little bit better. But the first mistake that you might encounter is when we go now to work in our knit stitch, we may end up doing a twisted stitch. And a twisted stitch, if I take this off here, the loop that's made for our stitches, we have the side that's on the right. And let me know if you guys can see this clearly. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Okay. So we have the side. Do I have a pen or something? One second. All right, let's use my kid's pencil. Just make sure that everything is nice and crisp. Okay, so we have the side here that is on the right side. So you see the loop here, and I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you. We have the right side of the loop, and we have the left side of the loop. And the right and left is based on it facing you. So what happens is whenever we're knitting into the project, we are knitting with the right side of the loop facing us on the needle. The left side of the loop is behind. So let me put it back on. As you can see, here is the loop. When I put it on, the right side is here, and this is facing us. So this is the right side, and then behind that is the left side. What happens when you twist the stitch is instead of working into the side that is facing us, which is the right side of the stitch of the loop, you would accidentally work behind in the left side of the loop. And as you can see, the stitch is twisted. You can see that little twist here. Let me do just regular knits for you so that you could see it maybe a little bit better. So you can see I'm working in the stitch in the loop that is facing me, and that is the right side of the loop. And that's what I'm working to get that nice V. But if I go from behind, so right behind here, and work into the left portion of the loop, I'm going to have a twisted stitch. So let me just knit a couple more and then another twisted one. Let me see if you could see clearly. Okay. So if you can see a regular knit stitch, it's not connected here. Whereas if the stitch is twisted, this right here is a twisted stitch. Do you see how it is connected at the bottom here? One of our loops is going over the other loop. So that is a twisted stitch. And how you would fix that is just being mindful when you're knitting. But if you already knitted and you see that you have a twisted stitch, you will then remove the stitches from your needle. You're not knitting or purling it off, you're just removing it, kind of like a placeholder. And you're moving it until you get over to the part that has the twisted stitch. So these are the correct stitch. As you can see, there's no twisting in this space right here, right in here. So they'll come together, but they're not twisted over each other. So you're going to move it over to your other needle. And then right here, we see that there's a twisted stitch. So if you look at the bottom of this stitch, it's twisted. So what we're going to do is keep those over here. We're going to take the loop off of the needle. We're going to let it go down so that we could undo this. And to undo this loop, we're just going to twist it the correct way, just like that. And then to get it back up, we're just going to take our needle, push it through. This is the stitch that we undid. That's the space there. We're just going to put it on the needle and pull it through. Then you place it back on the other needle. And that is how you fix the twisted stitch. So again, not twisted. There's this nice space in between. When you're not pulling it apart, it looks like it's together, but there's that space. So this one has that nice space. You go to this one, nice space still. Nice space here. It's going to be moving the stitch. And then here we have another twisted stitch. So if I try to pull both loops apart for this stitch, they're connected. One loop is overlapping the other one. Let me see if I can bring it closer for you guys. Okay, so you can see here, one loop is over the other versus here that has the stitch not going over one another. So this would be a twisted stitch. You would then take it off the working needle, just like that. You pull it out, just like that. And then you just take the loop and just twist it the correct way. And at this point, if you have a crochet hook on hand, you can go ahead and use the hook to kind of go into here and hook it. Normally, I don't have a crochet hook on hand, and I'm guessing you guys probably won't. It's just an extra thing that is nice to have, but you don't need to have. So that's why I'm electing to show you guys without the crochet hook, because it's pretty easy to do it without. And you're just taking your not your crochet, your knitting needle, pushing it through. Or sometimes if it's chunky enough, I just go ahead and take my finger, I make a space where my thumb is, and I just grab and pull it through and then put it back on my needle. So I don't think we have any more twisted stitch. So then we're going to put them all back on this needle by just sliding it over. And now if you look at your work, you have all nice, neat, knitted stitches. So that's one of the mistakes that you can come upon. You can do a knitted project with just twisted stitches. It does give a nice look. But if you are trying to get your garment or whatever you're making to look like the traditional knit stitch, you want to avoid twisting your stitches. So the next thing, so we're going to be starting to knit down this row. And whenever we're starting to knit down another row, we have our working yarn in front and facing us, right? But what can happen is you can accidentally put the working yarn behind. So you could go over like that. And then what happens is you create two stitches here and you might accidentally knit into two stitches. So let's say, for example, when you're turning your work, you turn and you have We don't do anything with the working yarn. We just have it here. We turn our work. The working yarn is in front. But if we're already in front and we're like, okay, I don't remember what to do with this. I remember something about putting it over. So you put it over and then you turn, and now it appears that you have another stitch here that you have to work into. So let's say you go ahead and you work into that. I don't know how, but you work into that maybe from the back loop just to kind of make it work because it's not supposed to be there. So you're just trying to figure out how to make it work. Right. And you knit into that. And then you knit into this one. And this is how you end up with extra stitches on your needle. And this is how, a straight fabric could then start veering off to the left or veering off to the right. If you are accidentally, when you're turning your work, you're adding another stitch by yarning over at the wrong time or yarning over in the wrong place. So just a reminder, whenever you're turning your working yarn, the one that's attached to the ball of yarn that you're using, is in the front. So the other thing that you may mess up on is, as you can see, sometimes when you have nails, it can split your yarn depending on the yarn and also how fast you're working. So sometimes if I'm not paying attention and I'm knitting and my nail is snagged on it, what can happen is I can accidentally, let's purl here. I can accidentally either place my knitting needle here and my nail could snag somewhere here and it splits the yarn. Or when you are yarning over, you yarn over really quickly and you split the yarn at some point. So here the yarn is split, and then that also can create an extra stitch for you. So you just have to be mindful when you are inserting your needle, just to make sure that when you insert it, you're inserting it through the entire stitch instead of part way, or when you are wrapping your yarn over, you're not wrapping in between the yarn, because that way you're splitting the stitches and this could cause you to have an extra stitch on your needle. So into the splitting of the stitch, well, actually, let me stop for a bit. If you guys have any questions or if you want me to go over any of those, I'm just going to give a minute because I've just been going through that pretty quickly. Let me know if you're able to see everything clearly before I continue going into that. Okay. So the next one is not pulling the yarn through the stitch properly. So this happens when, say we are purling and you put your needle through and you yarn over and you pull through and you get it off the needle like that, right? Instead of doing it that way, you would put the needle through, you yarn over, and instead of pulling through and then also taking this off the needle, you are just pulling through and that stays on the needle. That happens sometimes if you're going really quickly. That stays on the needle and then you're, going through again. And that's how you end up with a stitch that looks like this, where one is a yarn over and one is the actual stitch. So you accidentally create two stitches there instead of one. So most of these mistakes is if you're going too quickly. Others are definitely mistakes that I've made just as a beginner, but I just want to make sure that I go through all of them with you guys in case they pop up. You can refer back to this video. So the next one, I had a list just to make sure I don't miss anything. The next one is with the tension, right? And in the beginning, I say tension is based on the knitter, but there's some things that you can do that just kind of make the tension, I guess, not your own because you are doing two things incorrectly. So one of the things that you can be doing incorrectly, for example, when we are purling into the stitch, if you notice, I keep my yarn up here on my pointer finger, and that gives me an even tension. I'm not pulling this on its own because usually I have different tension when I'm pulling each time I'm going through a stitch. So I like to just put it on top of my index finger. If you're not comfortable doing that yet, you might just be pulling your working yarn, just using your index and your thumb, which is totally fine. See, I'm like, I have that habit. Okay, so what happens when you're doing that, or let's say the working yarn is down, what happens when you're doing that is that every time you go into a stitch, you are pulling. And what happens when you're pulling is that you can sometimes pull too tight, right? So you're pulling, you're trying to hold it here, and then let's do that again. You're pulling, you're trying to hold it here, and you end up with a really tight stitch on your needle. So you don't want to do that because then as you work, you may have some stitches that are a little looser, some stitches that are tighter, and your project kind of looks all over the place because it's not even tension. 1 second. I tend to go up with extra stitches when I purl. Is there a particular reason for that? Go up with, oh, end up with extra stitches when I purl. Okay, that could be a couple of things. So with the purl stitch, it can be a little bit tricky because there's kind of multiple places that you could accidentally go in. So you could accidentally go into this. So let me go into what I was saying before, and then I'll jump into your question because it kind of goes hand in hand. So the other thing with the tension is when you're pulling the stitch apart too much. So it's too far apart. So when your work is this far apart, it's a little bit harder to identify what I'm actually working into next, right? We have the part here that's going across, and we have the stitch on the needle. What can happen when you're pulling far apart is you could accidentally work into this stitch here. So you work into this stitch here, you turn over, and you pull here. And then you go up here and you work into that stitch up there, you yarn over, and it looks like that. So then we have another stitch here. Another thing when you are purling, it's not even the right yarn, is here's another mistake. I'm working in the yarn that is not even attached to the ball of yarn. So I could be working here with this back here, right? So let's say I work this stitch with that yarn back there, and then I come again and I bring this over, and I'm working into this stitch right here. And it's just a bunch of things that you can do incorrectly whenever you have your work too far apart. Let me go back into this. So to answer your particular question, Carmen, is you can be working in multiple places when you either have your needles too far apart and when you're purling. Because this right here, let's see, yeah, this right here looks like a stitch that you could work in. This right here looks like a stitch that you could also work in. And then you, of course, have your stitch on your needle. Another thing when you're purling that could be giving you that extra stitch is same thing, you purl and then you pull this and you have what essentially is a stitch. And then let's say, for example, you go again and you take this off your needle, and now you have two stitches there. So there's just a lot of things that could go wrong on the purl section because it just looks so chaotic. But you just have to pay attention and make sure that you're only working in the stitch on the top portion of the needle. Make sure that you are having your work that you're not working, in towards the bottom. Sometimes if you just do a little adjustment at the beginning part of knitting to make sure that everything down here is here instead of sometimes it's a little bit up here, so it can be a little bit more confusing. That does sometimes help. So kind of doing a little bit pre-check before even going into the stitches, kind of taking it slow does help because there are a lot of places and things that you can accidentally purl or knit in that can give you that extra stitch. Whenever I'm crocheting, I do, well, when I was first starting and I was getting extra stitches, what also helped is just doing a basic count at the beginning and at the end, just to make sure that you are having the correct amount of stitches. It can be a little bit tedious, but once you start doing that, I think mentally and just with your hands doing the knitting, you'll kind of get the hang of, how you're supposed to do it correctly. And doing the count at the end just kind of ensures that the numbers are correct. And over time, you'll kind of get used to doing it correctly. So in the beginning, you're going to have to do a little bit more work, pay attention a little bit more. But once you do that, you'll kind of get more comfortable and used to what you're actually supposed to be working in. Let's see. Just want to make sure I got everything. Okay, so that's with this yarn, and I hope you guys were able to see that well. With the colors, sometimes I'm unsure if it'll turn out well on camera. But I did create a swatch for this portion because this is mostly for the drop stitches. And the drop stitches looks differently when we are purling versus when we are knitting. So I'm going to drop this stitch on purpose. So let's see, I'm not paying attention. And I go ahead and I'm knitting along, watching something. I drop another stitch, purling along. I drop another stitch, purling along. I'm done. The second, can you show how to unknit? Okay. The second link is not working. Oh, you know what? I'm in my studio portion of my playlist. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to give you a specific video. And from that video, it should link you to the playlist. Okay. All right. So we're at the end of the row. We turn around and we have some drop stitches. So what happens with drop stitches is as you're knitting, you might have dropped one, but as you're knitting, it kind of gets loose and it'll continue dropping the stitches. Basically, it has nothing to hold on to. Like I said, it's pretty easy when you are on a purl roll like this. You want to, I forgot we were doing garter stitch. No, I think we're doing garter stitch with this. So it kind of looks a little crazy, but we are going to essentially do picking it up when we are purling. When we are purling and we want to pick up the drop stitch, instead of having the work behind, like when we do with the knit, and we pull it through this way, we are instead going to have this loop push behind, and then we're going to pull it in from the back, just like that. And that's what creates the bump for us. Let me just fix the, just a little bit. All right. So again, whenever you drop a stitch and you have a purl stitch, so here's the bar of the drop stitch, and we want to get it back, continuing up the row. If we had a row of knits and we wanted to put the knit stitch back, or we make the knit stitch, we have our work just staying right behind.
That's all she did. She just did her and then knit together, and then it was went.
Okay. So, Carmen, your volume came on. I don't know if you're asking a question, but I did mute you for now. But if you are, just raise your hand and then I'll come back to you and you could speak the question. Yeah, so if you are trying to create another knit stitch, you'll take this loop, put your finger through, just like that, and you're going to grab that stitch through. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see clearly, we created the knit stitch. Whereas if we want to purl, we're going to take this portion, put it in front of the loop, and you're going to grab it from behind and you create the purl stitch, just like that. Oh, it wasn't you? Oh, sorry. Okay. And then do you guys want me to go over that again? So let's say we want this to be knits like the others, right? We have the loop in front. We take the one from the back, this long bridge here. These long bridges show that we have dropped our stitches. The first thing you want to make sure, especially if you drop multiple stitches, you want to make sure that they are not crossing over. If they're crossing over, that means you're doing the wrong row and it's going to mess up something else in the other row. So you want to take the stitch that is good. If we are trying to create more knit stitches, we're going to put our the drop bridge behind and just pull it through the front. Again, pull it through the front. Again, pull it through the front. So if you ever see people doing the hand knitting, this is essentially what they're doing. So over here, I'm just going to leave that open, but I'm going to show you guys how to put it back on your yarn after. But we're going to go over here to this drop stitch area here. And same thing. You just want to make sure that you are lining everything out so that the dropped ladders, is what I call them, I don't know if that's the proper name, is in the correct order. Then you take the stitch. If you want it to purl, you put it in front and you're grabbing the ladder from behind and pulling through. You look for the next one. So this would be the next one. Take it, put it in front, grab it from behind, and pull through. Again, you can use a crochet hook if you want, or if you have that handy, but you can just use your hand, or you could use the other knitting needle to help with this. Again, it's in behind, put it in front, just like that, and then pulling through. And this is the last one. Put it behind, pushing and pulling through. And you kind of want to adjust so that the length of the stitches are even. And then you just slide these off. Pencil's holding this one. Slide these off. And then you're going to place it back on the knitting needle, making sure that the right side of the loop is in front. And then you place the other ones just right back on the needle. And then you could continue knitting as usual. If you drop your stitches, and they're starting to come down, all you have to do is just take your knitting needle, and I'm just going to be using the pencil as an example. When you are going back into your work, you just want to make sure that the right side of the loop is facing you. And you just put the loops right back on your knitting needle with the right side facing you. And just really quickly, oh gosh, I hope I'm not keeping you guys too much. Okay, really quickly, just to show you how to unknit. So let's just work on this side right here, right? So we're knitting over here and we want to unknit. To unknit what we've done up here, we are going to go into the previous row. You could go into the previous row or any row on the project, right? And you could do that by basically placing your knitting needle through whatever. Let's say we want to unknit one row down. So we're going to go into this row. You're going to place your knitting needle right through the front, slide off the stitch, and now this is the row that we're going to go into. So you're just putting your needle right in the middle, taking the other needle, pulling the stitch off, and then you're pulling the working yarn and the ladder so that now it's on the other needle. And then what you want to just make sure is that the right side of the loop is the one that's facing you. This is a little messed up because I have the other side, but you can also go from the back, take it off your needle, and pull. So go from the front, just go in the middle, slide it off your needle, pull the back, pull the bridge, and now you're undoing the work. So you just, if you are, unsure if you're doing it correctly, like I say, this is the back side of the work, so it's a little messed up. I will go into this next class just to make sure that you're seeing it correctly. You just want to make sure that the right side of the loop is facing you as you're knitting. Go from the back, take off the stitch from the other side, pull the ladder, and now they're on the loop. And the work that is no longer needed is being undone. I'll continue taking it off, pulling, taking it off, pulling. And it can seem a little scary, but if you aren't doing a specific project, just cast on a few stitches and give it a try. And then you could just pull this, to the other side and then start working. Because I have another side here, my working yarn is all the way over here. But if you had just cast it on for this, your working yarn would end up right here, and then you could go ahead and knit. Is there any other questions? Feel free to unmute. If not, I will end it here. All right, guys. Thank you again for joining me for another class. Next class will be Wednesday next week, same time. If I haven't covered anything or if you have any questions that pop up, feel free to email me. Thank you guys again, and I will see you next week. Bye. Oh, you're welcome.